I have no idea. Yeah, I'm not getting any audio.
Default microphone.
Aha,
Oh,
okay. Thank you. I think we've got it now. Okay.
Ooh, are you gonna start your video back on?
Recognize that.
Technology serves as well, doesn't it? Okay,
Oh,
when you're ready,
Too many
Dan,
times.
why don't you go through
yeah,
our
okay.
procedures here for both the in-person and the remote folks?
I think that's Charlotte. Yeah.
Hi,
wait a minute.
sorry, this is Charlie. I cannot get the link in the agenda to work.
Okay. This works for us if it works for you. We are just kicking off with
Sure.
public comment expectations. So we do
Okay.
have many people in the room tonight. For those in the room, we ask you to get the attention of the chair before you speak. Announce yourself. Our minute taker is remote, so repeat your name before your comment so that she can capture what you said and attribute it to you. For those online, it'll work the same way. Before you speak, you can use the function of Zoom to raise your hand. We will make sure to monitor that and accept your comments at the time.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, we're through the formalities. Well, now we have at the opening of our meeting an opportunity for folks to discuss with us topics that are not on the agenda. In other words, not business that we'd be handling on the formal agenda. So if anybody has anything they just want to raise, what's on the
I
agenda?
just have a question. What is on the agenda? Is there a copy of it that you're handing out or?
Yeah, I'm sure we can find a copy on the agenda. The agenda for you.
She's making them.
I'm sorry.
I'm pretty sure that's what she's doing is making copies.
Okay.
Oh.
Great.
So well attended tonight.
Yeah.
It's all one packet, so.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah. Nobody else can bring everything.
Yes, Mary.
Thank you, Jeff. Mary Rapar Stevenson. Just a couple of things. I want to invite you all to the Slovenia Democrats meeting on the 9/18th. We are going to have Hector Hinojosa from the Community Roots Collaborative. They're building affordable housing in Vancouver. And I've heard him before. He's an excellent presenter. They're actually doing it. They're implementing their plan. They're making small homes and tiny homes for families and individuals. So 9/18, it'll be in person or on Zoom at Hegewald Center. And if anybody wants the Zoom, you can go to the Dems Facebook page and there's the Zoom information. But it's a really interesting program. We're always talking about affordable housing, and maybe it's time we started to do something about it. Also, I sent the Planning Commission some information on a film 2040 that the Grange, of which I am the master here in Stevenson. We had our final film of in our critical issues of our Times film series. And 2040 is an excellent film. We wanted to end on an upbeat note about climate change. And this is a really good film, which tries to look at the things that we have available now in our communities to do to affect climate change. A few things that came out of it was regenerative agriculture and microgrids, which microgrids, hooray, independence from the grid. And so I would urge you all to look at this film. It's free on Canopy and through the library or on your own. It's an app. And I want to invite you all, everybody, to the fermentation class that we're having with Sander Katz on the 23rd. That will be a Zoom session, and it's through the library, and he's written a lot of books on fermentation. So our theme this year was remembering what we've forgotten for the Grange theme this year. And we're going to end our programs with intro to fermentation. So, and plant and seed swap, November 11th. So get your plants out of the ground and into pots and come share with the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary, what time is the affordable housing at Bigelow?
6 p.m.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, let's take a look at our minutes for our last meeting of August 14th. And those are not for review. So any comments, changes, recommendations, deletions?
I wasn't here, so.
I was here and I looked through them and they look great. And I motion that we approve the minutes as written.
We have a motion to approve the minutes for our August 14th meeting. Is there a second?
Second, Charlie. Second,
Charlie, can you
thank
second that for us?
I sure can. Seconded.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. At this point on our agenda for everyone's information is we're going to review the Chinnadeer subdivision request to vary the approved preliminary path or preliminary plat, lessen the pedestrian pathway. Ben, do you want to introduce this?
I'll introduce this. I'll start with just a summary of the staff report. I'll probably kick it over to the Chinnadeer team after that to explain what their proposal is. And then Carolyn and I are here to talk about the staff recommendation in response to that proposal. So the Chinnadeer subdivision was approved by the city in 2006, subject to several conditions of approval that they've been satisfying. One of the original proposals that was reviewed by the city and approved was to have a pathway, pedestrian pathway, essentially along the perimeter of the whole property. Portions of that were installed with phase 1 of the development, and we're now into phases 2 and 3 that are being constructed out there, and that they'll seek city council approval for the final plat on. If there's ever a change to the final plat between what was approved in the preliminary plat and what is being requested of city council, then we send it to you all at the planning commission to provide a recommendation on. There is a change with this one with the request to modify the location of the trail or remove it entirely. 3 different proposals were submitted. Staff is recommending a combination of those proposals to move forward with this.
Okay. So just for clarity, we are making a recommendation to the city council on what we think the appropriate action is.
Correct.
With regard to this request. Okay. So this we got our opportunity to hear from the applicant. Again, this is not a formal public hearing. But we will open it up to public comment too, once this is through, if anybody cares to. So please introduce yourself and walk us through your proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ben, for the description. My name is Dustin Conroy, and I'm with Pioneer Survey Engineering. I am the surveyor and civil engineer of record for the project for phase 2 and 3. Recently, it's come to our attention that the pathway is difficult to construct on the west side of lots 69 and 70 due to topography. On the west side of those lots, it falls down to the creek very quickly, and actually even before the lot corners of 69 and 70. So that's part of the reason why we're here, is that path is very difficult to construct in that area. Also, as part of the project, on the north side of lots 63 through 68, sewer line was installed for the city. That wasn't part of the project, and that's where the path was previously located. As part of that process, the path went away because there's a sewer line there to serve property to the north outside of the project. In our review in the field and in discussions with the city, we came up with 3 alternatives that we submitted for the city to review. The first option is our preferred option, would be to remove all paths from the project. A couple of reasons for removing them would be the difficulty to construct them. Also, it reduces the privacy of all the lots that the path runs behind and touches those lots. And also the property to the north of the subdivision, the proposed path as presented would actually run on the south side of those lots and would affect their privacy as well. The path, it was just proposed to be a gravel path through the project. There is a sidewalk on one side of the road that runs the entire length of all the new lots. The second option that we provided was to reduce part of the path in some areas. So lots where the path was previously in lot 71 and through 69, it would stop short of those lots because that would be very difficult to construct, and then we cut across between a couple of the lots. Again, privacy issues come up, and maybe liability issues too, I guess, for the project. If someone gets hurt, it's still property within, it's owned by the HOA, and they'd probably be the ones in litigation. As part of option 2, there would also tie in to the existing path on the east side of the project, and it would be located between lots 61 and 70 and run kind of southeasterly from there. Option 3 that we proposed would actually go through the oak preservation area between lots 68 and 69. There's some open space there where the plan was initially proposed. And so it would run through that preservation area and then along the north property line from lot 63 to 68, and then tie into the sidewalk on the 2 ends. And as stated, our preferred alternative would be to remove all paths due to privacy concerns, as well as maintenance. And if I were to buy one of those lots and construct there, I wouldn't want a path right behind me. I'd probably construct a fence, and then you don't ever know what's going on the backside of that fence on these paths. But I'll turn it over. Do you have anything to add?
Well, I'm Rick Levitt. I'm kind of a principal in the project. And yeah, the big issue that we have, I mean, as far as the homeowners association goes, is it was, and I bought this project after the original guy came through and did all this, so it was inherited to me. And I read the things and everything. What concerns us is it's a privately owned path that's maintained by the homeowners association, the property owners there. But it was also being forced to allow public use of it. And the thing that bothers me the most about it is the liability. A broken leg, a rape, a murder, whatever, you know. Who's gonna be on the hook for anything that happens on that path? It's a homeowners association. And they're just not, you know, it's just not a good idea to have a private property be responsible for public use on a path. Second of all, there's a sidewalk that borders that path that's less than 100 feet from where it's at. That goes the whole length of that path. It's on the phase 2 and 3, with the exception of the connection to what they call the habitat area that was approved back in phase 1. Again, property owners, you know, having people walking through their front yard, you know, near their front yard, if they don't fence them completely off, which really affects a lot of the views up there, because it is a view property, is they just don't want to have it. I mean, they just don't want it. But we had a late development earlier today, and some of it involved in some land giving easements to the city. I don't know the whole spectrum of it or anything, but we still have the Oak Preservation Area, which has 2 parking lots, actually a 3-car parking area, where people can walk up and, you know, sit amongst the Oregon white oaks that are up there. We do have plans on clearing a pathway to that part of the project. And from what I understand, tell me if I'm wrong, the city would like to have a blanket easement for the habitat. I call it the habitat right away, because that's exactly what it is the open space between Valette Creek and the project, the back of the lots, which is fine with us, but it would require us to go in there and log extensively to build this path. It also involved a lot of machine time and retaining walls to build that path through that ravine. And at this point, we think that there's enough to offer there to allow, you know, people to, obviously the Oregon oak area or the Oregon white oak area is going to be available to public access. And, you know, that's it. All the homeowners that I talked to, all the homeowners that are here tonight, you know, most of them, I don't know all of them, but are supporting the idea that we just don't need this path through here. We've got, you know, we got $300,000 worth of sidewalk here. You know, there is a nice sidewalk that goes from the top of the subdivision, from where the original subdivision is, for people to walk down. It's totally connected into the city. There's sidewalk all the way from the north side to downtown. That actually connects even to here. And we just feel that the path should be abandoned.
Okay, any other questions? Any questions from the planning commission?
I heard something about an existing pathway that's already there.
Phase 1, we built the pathway for phase 1.
And where is it located?
It's located at the very south end along Highway 14.
Okay.
And goes up to what they call a habitat enhancement area. I don't know if enhancement's the right word, but a habitat area, which would be where that purple is
Right.
at this time.
Okay.
I personally think it'd be fine to go ahead and have a turnaround up on that habitat area to allow people to sit down and view the water. Because phase 1 path is in, I mean, we can't get rid of it at this point. But phase 2 and 3, you know, we would like to see go away.
And with regard to that path behind, what is it, lots 46, 47, 48, 49, that's sort of on the west side. You were citing what, terrain as being an issue there, or is that? Well, not
In 69 through 71.
Up here.
69 through
The
70.
topography, it drops
Oh,
very
okay.
quickly.
Which is where that little indentation is. It's
Creek.
there's Valette. I think it's a tributary. I don't know if it's the actual creek. If I go down it, I'm not gonna get up. But I have to tell you that right now. So But, we've left that area completely untouched. Everything in green, we haven't put a machine in there. Well, we built the path on the one side and went in to do markers. But that's the area that I think, what I understand now, the green area would be where the city would want their blanket easement to be able to do whatever they want to do in the future. But that's all designed to protect the creek area and the habitat.
Okay, I'm not familiar with the easement proposal.
Yeah, so that's where we'll pick up just a response to this. So again, it's a change from what was there. We reviewed the 3 proposals that were submitted to us. We looked at it through lenses of connectivity, constructability, livability, and another. Climate change is a placeholder for you all to discuss as previously requested. And we're separating the discussion out into 3 areas. So in the green area, this is where that ravine wall is extremely steep. I was skeptical about constructability there, but went and stomped around, and it's not possible without, well, it's almost not possible. But there is a very big recreational resource if we were to put together a project that might involve lots on the other side of the stream too. And so staff recommendation in this case is to allow them to remove that easement from the face of this plat, grant more of a blanket easement so that if we can figure out something in the future, we'll be able to without property acquisition. The second area is along the north side. It's on red in this map with some yellow. This we're recommending just removing totally through the middle of the block there and encumbering those lots. There have been some crosswalk ramps that were installed to facilitate that location. We're recommending those be removed and continuous curb be put in place there.
Or sidewalk.
Or sidewalk on the one. For the blue area on the western side, this is where it picks up from the existing pathway easement, which is in purple on this map. Recommending part of a version of their requested change there. The proposal that they had runs the pathway through the habitat area. Could accept that with additional analysis about habitat impacts.
Are you talking about tract C?
Tract C?
Okay.
Yeah. Or encumber the lot above with it. And then to split the encumbrance between those 2 lots, the applicant's proposal is just to put it on one. This would split it between them. And then to propose some way to get those pedestrians safely across the street onto the sidewalk system. And so that could be a crosswalk, that could be additional sidewalk going to the existing crosswalk. But some engineering into that for review by the city engineer. So the summary there is we are recommending removal of majority of the pathway, altering it where it connects up to the existing system and connects to quasi dead-end streets, and to allow for future planning in one of the areas.
So on the blue, you're looking at in between lot 60 and 61, as well as 61 in tract C. What about along the road, since you have sidewalk on the other side?
That's where we would need to see some additional detail in the proposal from their engineer to, if a crossing is safe at that location, I'm sure we would approve a crossing at that location. If it's not safe at that location, then additional sidewalk to get it to a safe crossing.
Okay. That's a question back.
I just want to make sure we go through the planning commission questions and then open it up for questions or comments from others. Any questions?
So regarding topography of the carve out here, is it just really untenable?
It does. It goes from a fairly flat series of benches along the south side to almost vertical.
Vertical,
You know,
all right, yeah, all right, I got it.
Yeah, Jeff, my questions are pretty much answered. I don't know if there are other folks that want to speak about this, but I'm comfortable with understanding where we are. So I'll lower my hand again if you can still see my hand on the screen there.
Fair enough. At this point in time, if there are folks that would like to offer, comments, suggestions, your thoughts on this particular proposal, I'd be happy to recognize you and address this. So,
Thank you. Yeah, my name's Ann Bain. We own the property just outside of the development, Tinadir, development, just on the other side. We started building in 16. When we acquired the lot, we used an existing foundation from the previous owner, and we had no idea that this development was happening. So we are right on the southern edge of our lot, which is right up against the other one. So our primary concern is to not have that pathway right outside our daughter's bedroom, which is what it would be. It sounds like that's not being considered right now, which I'm very grateful for, like having that go between our existing lot outside of Tinadir and what's it, 60? What's the one right below? 62 right below us. That one I'd fight tooth and nail to have there because that has a huge impact on our privacy as a family. So that's our number one concern. In terms of the other liability concerns, I think that's real. For the HOA, we are not members of the HOA, but we are hoping to buy the 2 lots below us and build there. Those are going to be really difficult lots to build on because our plan had been to build off to the east side, so to avoid impact to our own existing house. It's a view house, as Rick has pointed out. We care a lot about our view, and so we'd hope to build like a low structure on the east side. We don't see how that's possible with the way the road is built up today. And they're very narrow entrances. So if we have that path coming up, that's the proposed pathway, it's going to be even harder to build any kind of structure that's not right on the road, which is not what we were hoping to do. So that's plus the additional privacy concerns. If we get the lots and if we build there, it's still a price.
so you're referring to that area around lots 62 and 63, is that?
Is that right?
And they're right above it.
No, 60, they're above 61 and 62. They're just right north of that.
Yeah, we're just north of that, but the See
2
the-
lots
see the
immediately
dotted
south
line
of us are the 2 lots we're hoping to buy to preserve our view.
I think scale is.
Yeah.
scale is-
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Others? Want to share your thoughts on this?
I did have some thoughts, but they've addressed everything that I was gonna say. So
Okay.
I appreciate that. I kind of want to shake your hand right now, but.
We have one hand raised.
We'll recognize it and then we'll go up on the
Okay.
screen.
The only other, Robert Bain. The revised blue as it goes between lots 60 and 61.
Mhm.
There's quite an elevation change to the new road.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like 10, 12 feet straight up. So I don't know how, unless you put in an escalator, it's a.
Or build stairs.
So that's on that copy then between 60 and 61. Okay, and we have Ben online that would like to address this.
Yes.
All right, yes, you can unmute
Yeah.
and introduce yourself, please.
Yes, Thomas Shanley. Thanks for allowing me to speak this evening. I'm a prospective buyer of one of the lots, actually number 60. So I share the concerns with others that have stated the concern with the privacy and the liability, etc. And whether it was 60 or another, I just I have the same argument in terms of not wanting just whomever can come through there and do whatever. So just want to reiterate the point earlier made around the privacy and those other lots of 61 and 62 that also border that pathway. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
I have a question,
Okay.
and I'm not familiar, Therese Stacy,
okay.
does Angel Heights have, walking paths for the public through there?
No.
Yes.
I think it should be, if I may speak. The Angel Heights has a path that connects the subdivision to the city sidewalk below it. It's not a walking trail, it's a paved path to get people down to the Haywald Center. The rest of the path through Angel Heights sidewalks. Unless I'm not correct, let me know. But it's just a path that came to the bottom of the Angel Heights to connect to the Haywald Center.
I did not know that.
Yes, it's paved.
It's very safe as well.
It's steep.
It's one of the things we face here in Stevenson. It's either up,
Yeah.
there's not much flat. So, yeah. Any other thoughts? Mary?
Yes, Mary Rapar Stevenson. I have a few questions. I remember Chinamere and how it came to be and the lawsuit against having 84 homes on that slope. And a lot of the mitigation things that were spoken of, I thought that the path was a mitigation effort because of all the trees that were cut down and everything else. So can you speak to why this path came to be, the reasoning behind it, when the city gave permission for Chinandere to be built where it is being built today? Ben?
I can't. I wasn't involved and wasn't.
There were mitigation efforts, so I think we need to have more clarification. Because one of the things that I remember is that it was the public access, that the public have access to that area. And the walking path was a mitigation effort, as I recall, for that reason. And also because of everything that happened in Chinandere. And the lawsuit addresses that. I think I still have a copy of it. I'm sure the city does too, where the judge remanded everything back to the city and all the different phases and everything. See, if you live here long enough, you know most stuff. So that might be someplace where we should find out. I sympathize with privacy issues, but also public access was something that was the topic of the day there. And perhaps there might be another way of dealing with that issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Yes.
Like I said, I'm boss off. I just have a statement. Sorry. I just have a statement for Mary. Maybe you should go up and look and see what, it's not a nature trail. It's literally walking through people's backyards.
You know, I've been in a rambling club and I totally understand that, but when Chinandere came to be, that was the discussion that was had.
It's not a
And you
nature
can look
trail.
at the record and.
And if somebody buys one of these 10,000 square foot lots and they have a dog and they want to build a fence, they're going to have to not fence 12 feet of their backyard. They're going to be cut off from 12 feet of their backyard that they will not have access to, that people will just be walking through in between my wonderful neighbors' backyards and a fence. It's not a nature trail.
And that's something you need to bring to the planning commission.
Thank you for those comments. I will look to my, yes, sir.
If I may, Nick Bosser, I'm the husband of this one. Just on your, I think you mentioned connectivity too, as pedestrian access. You know, looking at the layout, I really don't see how that improves any connectivity through there. I mean, you could just as easily take the sidewalk that walk in people's backyards. And I think the sidewalk is just an unnecessary intrusion. You know, the path, sorry, an unnecessary intrusion. You know, it's going to reduce the value. It's going to reduce privacy, and it can increase crime. You know, you've got some kid walking up there, and you'd have to say, kids, keep your stuff indoors. Don't leave it out in the backyard because our backyard's not private. Someone might just jump over and grab it. You know, so I think it's not a great idea, and I really, I'm happy to see that some changes have been made to that. You know, and I think that I support removing all the paths. I don't really see any use for them, and I know as a civil engineer myself that sometimes these things come up, you know, in the beginning of a project during the land use, but then later on we find out, you know, they're really not worth doing. You know, things have changed. They don't really have a point. So yeah, that would just, just in answer to what you were saying.
Okay, thank you. Any more? Yes.
I got one. The trail down there that's already started that comes up through that area down there. Who's supposed to take care of that?
Homeowners.
You couldn't
association.
walk up that if you wanted to. And it's supposed to be a trail down.
And then my understanding that is an HOA responsibility. And that's, again, what we're looking at is what's proposed out there now for these additional 2 phases. And, I think there's been a good case here made in terms of the privacy aspects. And of the terrain that is a constraint. I mean, we don't want something that's not practical in terms of construction or maintenance over that period of time. There are sidewalks there. And there is access, certainly to that conservation area. So I think there are a number of factors here that I'm worthy of our consideration. Yeah, so you got another comment?
I do.
Can you give your name again?
Oh, Therese Stacy.
Okay.
This is Skamania County. We have so much Forest Service land, some fantastic trails. Plus, I think waterfront access and trails should be a Parks and Recreation plan and a Parks and Recreation department. And that should be run that way, not through subdivisions and HOAs. Forest Service, Parks and Recreation should handle all of this.
Thank you. And going back, Benny, because you were talking about city easement on some of this, or
On the green
Yeah.
space,
on the green
And
space?
the
on the west.
western side, for the green to grant an easement to the city to construct a pathway for public use.
In future.
It would be more practical for the city to do that.
There,
I mean, there's going to be constraints. I guess,
there will be
no matter how
constraints,
you
but
do it.
if there's a project, and this can be part of the solution, then we'd have the ability to do it.
All right. Okay, and are the applicants okay with the best concept of an easement on that property?
Yes, we concur with the city easement, blanket easement on that particular area next to Valley Creek
Okay,
up to the oak habitat.
okay, up that west side.
Green. Hold on, I'm sorry,
Charlie?
the green.
Yeah, Jeff, and Ben, and one factual question that I guess has escaped me in reading the agenda and hearing the discussion is the purple, the existing trail shown in purple on the east side of the property. What does it connect to on the south end?
It goes along the southern border of the property and back, comes out close to where the cabin, coffee shop is.
Okay, so it's continuous all the way down to there?
The easement is there. It was constructed with phase 1. It needs, maintenance.
Okay, so it's kind of sort of there.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen a homeowner drive a truck back there to get access to their backyard.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
that's also a PUD. Okay, going back to the old days, somebody in the planning commission mentioned that they should get the power lines off the project. And somehow that ended up becoming a condition, which I still to this day can't find. So we went ahead and took out all the telephone, all the power lines, we buried them.
Mm-hmm.
So that pathway became an easement for PUD because that burying went all the way to the next door neighbor's property also. So when you see people drive on that particular area, they shouldn't, the homeowners shouldn't, but it is a PUD access easement. And they will always have that because the lines are underground now.
All right, so that trail, that purple trail just dead ends, right? Is that?
Which is dead ends. To
And
the
so therefore,
east of all
therefore it's not
this,
getting much use, right? I mean,
correct,
currently, it's not getting much use, correct?
correct. There was a
Yeah.
4th phase of this development that was proposed along the eastern boundary of this, that would have taken this Brady Lane and connected it up to First Street. That phase, won't happen. That was sold to somebody else and they're not interested in doing that project. And so that Brady Lane is now a dead end and was never intended to be. And so that purple connection to the blue here is the proposal to maintain some sense of connectivity.
So is that purple section in track C?
It is.
Yes,
Okay.
whatever the open space is. I'm sure there's a track on the open space on the southern part of the purple.
I think it's probably B.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Nick Bob's up again. That, the blue one that I'm looking at, border of 61 and track C, is that in track C? Or is it in the private property?
It's not in tract C. It could be.
Could it be in track C?
Could be. It's considered a habitat area and the additional pathway wasn't evaluated as part of the project initially. But if habitat evaluation happens and impact is addressed.
Okay, it seems like a small change that could go there.
Yeah, it's not a small change. Because we're going into a habitat area, which will require critical permits. Very expensive.
Your choice. Your choice.
I know it's my choice, but I'm letting everybody know
It's not as much.
it's not a function that we're gonna do. I mean, can't. It's-
You're saying it's already been permitted, Victoria and rest in state, back state or whatever.
Well, the habitat area has been, but I mean, just to, there's 7 oak trees in this oak preservation area, which we haven't touched. But just to come out and locate those oaks is $4,000 for 20 minutes worth of work. It's how this operates this way. And it's, you want affordable housing, keep requiring these things. We're not gonna be able to make nothing affordable. Not anything. Fees have gone up, everything's gone up. So, you know, and going through a permit process just to bring that trail into that habitat area. You know, we got to go to the river keepers. I mean, it gets nasty. It's to be a long project. So, you know, however you decide this tonight, you know, that easement's either going to have to be between those 2 lines and in the front. Again, we're trying to get rid of it all, but you know, we just can't go into that habitat area. We're planning on trying to attempt to record on September 21st. We have deadlines to make on development extensions. So we tried to get this meeting earlier, but we were unable to get it in the last August period. So, you know, we just hope you can do the recommendation the way that you feel, and we can get down to the final plat here on September 21st. Go ahead. Ren.
Yes, sir.
I'm Ren Grendel. I live wherever my wife wants me to, but right now I'm in Washougal. I am the owner of Senator. And we were prepared to do everything that they originally required for us to finish this plot. And then the city came to us and asked for an easement, for a sewer easement. So we granted the city the sewer easement, which is the red area. We granted that, and we also at that time took a look at the rest of this project and took a look at the feasibility of this path. And people are talking about privacy and things like that. It's probably more than that. It's a security issue. And it's a functionality. There's some of the terrain here, nobody's gonna walk it. So you got 2 things. You can't walk it, and it's not secure.
Sewer easement is where, I guess.
The
red up
Red
across the
line.
top.
Okay, red across the top,
Yeah.
which is the other path at one point in time.
And so
Not
it's
all
not
of
the
it.
whole,
Right.
it's not the whole red area, it's
But
that
it's a
hatched
lot.
area within
Yeah.
that.
Oh, the hatched area, okay.
Then to do on top of that, because you're gonna try to change this easement, we've already got these improvements in. So now you're coming back, not trying to be offensive. You're coming back and making us redo the improvements that we were required. put in.
Should go back and recap what the staff thinking was.
One more question from Charlie, maybe.
No, I just failed to take my hand down. I think I'm ready to make a recommendation or ready to vote on something, but if you have a recommendation, Ben, we want to hear it.
Summarizing it, staff broke this down into 3 categories. One category along the west side of the subdivision is to remove a requirement to construct any path in that area or locate a specific easement within that area, and instead grant a blanket easement for the city to construct a path in the future. The second area is red on this map, and that's where it would go in the backyard of the lots to be created and adjacent to the backyard of existing lots. We're recommending removal of the pathway through that area, removal of the crosswalk drops that have been constructed in that area, and reconstruction of continuous curb and sidewalk where they exist. The blue is the one that's the most subject to change or influence by developers, engineers after you all, if you were to recommend this, but that would be to grant relocating it off of the perimeter so that it's only encumbering 2 of these lots, and then to figure out a way to get pedestrians safely from that path to the sidewalk system.
Okay. Jeff, would you like a motion?
Sure, Charlie, if you are so inclined.
So I'm inclined to go a little further than the staff has here and to go all the way to option 1 and remove the requirement for pass. And here's why. I'm generally a skeptic about the idea of privately provided and privately maintained open space. Public trails maintained by the Parks Department or some other public entity, they tend to get maintained and used. Things that are provided by HOAs either tend to not get used or eventually get fenced off, and nobody gets around to enforcing the old requirement that there be continuous access, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just not persuaded that even once it's fully connected, that people are going to use this trail. And if it's not used, then it's not serving a public benefit. I'm a big believer, and I think the applicant has done this in providing better ways to walk around town by having, a continuously connected sidewalk system that plugs into whatever sidewalks might be adjacent. So they're doing that. The oak habitat preservation, good idea. The steep Creek Valley preservation, good idea, because there's a public benefit and a benefit to the future homeowners in this new neighborhood of having that habitat area and that oak forest still there. But I just can't see that there's any significant upside to having this trail connected. I know that wasn't on your watch, Ben or Carolyn, but somebody in the past required this purple, easement. And I just don't see it, frankly. I just don't see it's ever going to have much use. And obviously there's some objection to it on practical and personal grounds from the folks that we've heard from. And I'm persuaded by that. So I would recommend that we take option 1.
And Charlie, are you making that as a motion then?
Yes. Yeah, I'll move option 1 and see if any of my fellow planning commission
I'm
members
going
agree.
to object to that.
Okay, well, we don't have a second yet, so. Okay, so I don't think we're quite there. So I think your motion at this point is gonna, do I have a second? Not the lack of a second, Charlie, but I think it starts as certainly in an area, that we want to pursue and I think build upon. I would agree with, I think, most of your observations. I have a hard time seeing the utility of that path along the east side. And I think just in terms of the privacy aspects along the north side, I think for both folks within Chittideer and those folks directly above Chittideer, I just don't think it's an appropriate use along there. I agree also that I think in this case, having an HOA maintained set of paths is not a viable option, I think, for long-term maintenance of these types of facilities. I'm pleased to see that open space along the west side. I'm not quite sure the easement is really worth pursuing if the construction complications are significant enough that we wouldn't want the applicant to pursue what they had originally in the preliminary plat. So that's sort of where I am at this point. I guess I'm interested to hear what Ann and David think.
You want to first?
So, I'm a big believer in, green space, and, walkways, that kind of a thing, but I agree with you. The topography of this just makes it unrealistic. So I'm, definitely not, in fact, when I moved to this town, I lived on Terry Lane, for a year. But, we already have existing easements on the east side. And I just think that would be conducive to the neighborhood. I mean, we only have to do this once and everybody that lives there gets to use it ad infinitum. So I think the benefits of having a greenway far outweigh the benefits of not doing it.
And what do you think about the north side?
I'm kind of on the fence about that one, but what do you think?
I don't like the idea of a walkway on the north side. I've been in a neighborhood where it did become a crime issue just because it's an access to backyards.
Really?
Okay. I have, and I do like walkways. I'm a big HOA proponent. There is an existing walkway, so I do agree with the city staff that putting the blue in would be access to the purple. West side is definitely not a walkway that we need to worry about at this point. So basically, I would motion that we agree with what the staff says and add the blue, depending on what's going to happen connectivity wise. Hopefully it can just have a crosswalk to connect to the sidewalk and not have the west side, not have the north side.
So are we saying we're going with phase 2? Is
that
Option 2? Yeah.
Option 2?
No, this is
the staff recommendation. This is not option 2.
Okay.
So what about the proposal of a city easement on that west side?
Oh, if the city wants to do that, I think that's a great idea. I don't have a problem with that at all. I like that because of the way that the neighborhood is laid out, you're going to have access on the west side, you're going to have access on the east side, and in between homes, you will not have access. Technically, because you've got green space on the west, you've got open space and a open tract where the existing purple is. So that's why I said I like the idea of connecting that to the street. Basically what the staff recommended.
Okay. Charlie, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I can go along with that. I would prefer that we cleanly here. I guess, Ben, my other counsel would be, I don't think you have to torture things about crosswalk for this trail, in that all the lots on the south side of Bryce Heights Street are going to have to walk across the street to get on the sidewalk, and they don't have a crosswalk. So I don't think we have to get into elaborate engineering to figure out how people will get across the street if this little blue section of trail is actually there, given that, again, I don't think any of us think there's going to be a high volume of walking on that trail.
Yeah, I would disagree with that, Charlie. I think if you're telling people they can walk along a path, you need to make sure that you connect that to someplace safe.
Well, that's why you're the engineer. Okay.
But I mean, I'm
I'm not sold on, I could be convinced that there's a different way to terminate that purple.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
you could
other
maybe-
kind of question I have in my head is if we don't go with the easement, there's a 3-car parking lot that's now sitting in the middle of the subdivision. So,
Oh, you're talking up in that. the
yeah,
northwest
up in
corner.
that corner.
Well,
I think everybody's okay with the easement.
you know, I just question, you know, I think it's open space, it's open space, there would be public access. Do you need a pathway or an easement for a pathway to ensure public access to that open space? That's the question I have. I mean,
You're talking about the green now, right? That's where the
Yeah.
parking lot is.
I mean,
Yeah.
if that easement helps provide public access to that green space, I don't have any objection to it. I'm just not quite sure what value it adds.
Yeah.
I hate that I now have a parking lot that I have to deal with. It's like not for anything.
Well, it would,
Could that just be on-street parking spaces?
Yeah.
but there's nothing that would prevent someone from parking there to be able to utilize or visit.
Well, if there's a curb there, it would prevent it. If the curb and sidewalk is continuous along that side of the street, unless I'm misunderstanding the design here, you're talking about that little square section of the green area that fronts on the curve of the street. If that's just a continuous curb and sidewalk and there's a couple of on-street parking spaces not associated with a house, then there's a place to park, right?
Yeah, let's not get into another Angel Heights, right?
How so? Sorry.
Parking on one side. Yeah, actually, it's got some weird parking stuff.
I mean, you know,
Ben pointed out it's not technically the city's, it's technically the HOA's.
I mean, if
Maybe we'll put snow there.
I guess I was
Be
looking at an easement extending all the way up that side. And I'm not so sure that easement really gains you very much in some of those areas where the terrain is very steep. I mean, if there's an advantage to an easement that provides some access up to that oak preservation area, that's a different thing, and I could go along with something like that. But if it's an easement that, in all reality, it is so physically limited that we can't really utilize it, why would the city exercise that?
Sounds like maybe there's an opportunity with parcels on the opposite side, you could span the creek.
The main constraint here is that behind 69, 70, and 71 is insurmountable. There hasn't been a big design effort to see where it would be possible, and this is just preserving the potential to do that design effort at some future time, but it's not necessary either to broadly looking at the subdivision through the lenses that we have for connectivity and livability.
Well, there isn't a Parks and Rec department necessarily. I mean, city does have parks, but they're kind of scattered and there's some potential there. We're working on a parks plan. And we'd like to, make sure that our communities have maintained access to green space, not just a blackberry patch that, is available to them. So.
I don't disagree with that. And I think of an easement, it would certainly address some of these concerns over who has to maintain it and basically who has, who's liable for anything that happens on that. Yeah, the easement, transfers that to basically to the city. If it's worth having in there just to preserve some future planning process and doesn't create any other problems, I'm fine with that. But if it's something that it doesn't add value and we can draw that conclusion down, given the topography, then why include it? And that's my observation.
His hand up again. You should probably just talk. Just tell him to talk.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Sorry.
Might be dueling with him.
Oh, his hand's down, so I guess.
Yeah, sorry. No, I forgot to take my hand down. Never mind. Sorry.
Fair enough. Okay. Yes, sir, if you have some brief comment you'd like.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm a little late in the game. Dave Denny, and I am a homeowner there in Shenandoah. And I'd really like to see more, focus on the blue with that walkway between 6 and 61, because I think we talked about the elevation. From the roadway down, is probably 15 feet of elevation in a very short distance. A lot of infrastructure is going to have to go in there, and there's a lot of free running water under that ground right there, that shell. I think we need to really focus more attention in that area, other than the green space, which I think we've pretty much tied down what we want to do with green space.
I think so. I think we're basically, our focus is in fact on that sort of blue section at this point in time in terms of what you're going to do with that.
Staff
I
consider.
think that he's right. When I lived there, I used to walk down to this area, and it is kind of so rainwater might be an issue.
There's springs.
Springs might be an issue.
I mean, it's because of the way the road is built up, it's much more of an issue than it used to be when you lived there. It's a big drop on the road now that it's very steep, as Dave called out there. It's,
At least 15% grade,
Right.
if more.
In fact, there wasn't a rockery planned for that between lots 60 and 62 and 61, but it was so high up, they actually had to build 4-foot rockery to prevent the road from collapsing. And then I also want to point out what you mentioned about the purple path and the turnaround point. So when the purple path was first built, we used to walk down there all the time when it was just gravel, before it was paved, and go past the cabin. Well, one day we noticed the path right past the retention pond, and we said, "Oh, what's this?" And we went there. We walked just to where lots 10 and 11 are on the purple lot, and it is so steep right there. You have to like crawl up it. So when we're talking access to this blue, that's not really, then because you're scrambling up there behind lot 11. And then if you manage to cross up to Brady, then you're scrambling up here where all the springs are. And then maybe you could get across the blue path. But most people are going to get to there and go, and turn around. And if you're coming down through the blue, you're going to get to there and you're just going to go down Brady Lane. You're not going to go down there. So, yeah, which is what everybody does because they live right there on the corner of Brady Lane.
All right, I think do we have enough feedback, enough discussion here to come to a conclusion?
I think so.
And someone care to make a motion?
I vote what I was talking about, the east side thing with the blue included. I don't even know what option that is.
Basically, that's the staff recommendation. That's what I was talking about as well.
There you go. The only thing that I vote against is not doing anything. So.
So back to staff recommendation.
Yes.
I would second your motion of doing what the staff recommended.
We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion, Charlie? What are your thoughts?
No, but I'll just exercise my prerogative to vote no, since we have a majority, and in this case, respectfully disagree with our good professional staff.
You're gonna put me on the spot, aren't you, Charlie?
It's all right. We don't have to always agree. We just have to not be disagreeable about disagreeing.
No, I have some concerns about that blue easement in terms of how practical that is. And wondering whether or not there's an alternative route to the east for a trail if we need one. But I want to see this process move ahead as well. And at this point, we'd be stalemated if I voted against this particular proposal. And I'm not sure gonna be able to make a recommendation to the city council. And the city council will be the one that makes the ultimate decision.
Well, absent. I mean, I don't know if he has an opinion on it.
So, you know, I would much prefer a motion that sort of splits the difference. And says, you know, notes that we have some interest in that blue easement, but also have some questions over the practicality of developing a pedestrian pathway through that particular area.
Well, I wouldn't mind splitting the difference, Jeff, but I guess I don't see how we do that. It's either a requirement or it's not, right?
Well, it means, in some ways, Charlie, again, we're making a recommendation to the
Right.
city council.
Right.
We're not making the decision.
No, I know.
And
We're either recommending that it be required or not recommending it. And again,
I have a hard time recommending that it be required.
Staff considered but didn't make a recommendation about having some maximum slope for the pedestrian pathway in that area. That is something that we could include. If
well, that might be a path through this, because I think if it's any kind of a public path, it can't have steps in it, right? It's got to meet ADA. And if it's too steep, you just can't do it.
Not totally. There are
Okay.
different types, and this could be qualified under one of the types.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an engineering thing. You could just dig out a bench.
Can you verbalize what that would be, how we would say that?
To help with that, or Dustin, do you have any
Well,
language?
maybe another alternative would be to, instead of having that path actually constructed as part of this, but require an easement be granted. So that on that blue path, a 10-foot easement that's not constructed. So at some point in the future, if people desire to have that path, there's a way, there's a place for it to be. And then grant an easement over everything in green as requested. I personally, that path along that line is going to be very difficult to construct because it is steep. It falls off pretty quickly once you get past the curve there. I don't think that's an ideal path or ideal location to put a walking path, but that east side of the project is just difficult to put in a path that is a reasonable grade.
What I don't love, and what I don't love is that when we put a preliminary plan together, we say, oh yes, we'll do just like this. And then we get to the, 11th hour and we're like, oh shit, we can't do it the way we thought we could at preliminary design. And then we say, well, we better not do it then. And to me, that isn't quite acceptable. So there's got to be like, I mean, we are where we are today, and I certainly don't want to have something constructed that no one's going to use, but maybe it's not a pathway. Maybe it's some other like little bench off that, a viewing platform. You guys at one point had talked about like a oak viewing area at one place, or maybe instead of trying to go up the blue, there's another little, I don't know, cleared area for people to sit and look at the river.
If I can speak, I'll tell you what we discussed when we talked about this was taking the existing purple into that habitat area
Yeah.
and clearing out an area to allow benches. So people can walk up, sit on the bench, look at the river, look at the kite borders. That's
right.
Not a problem. We also talked about, since we have the parking there, that we go in and clear so you can see at least see the oaks, and also have a spot for people if they want to sit down and reflect about these Oregon white oaks. And then the rest of this area, which we're talking about, the green area, we got to remember this is a habitat area.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a park. You can't have a park here. That's already been decided in judges' orders on that we can't have this named a park. It has to remain a habitat area. So the fewer people we have in the habitat area, the better off we are.
I concur.
We don't get along with animals, especially the bears and the deer and whatever else is in that thing. I don't go in there much. But it's not an area that we really want a lot of traffic at. It's an area where we want to leave the animals alone. That's why I didn't log it. I should have logged it. But I didn't because I wanted to leave the natural trees. There wasn't a planning requirement there. So, you know, rather than just log the thing, I just left it. Now the oak area, you know, a little area in there, it's not going to affect the habitat so much because they go up the creek because now it's quite a bit down below. You know, it's a nice little area to pull in and we throw a picnic bench in there or something, but it's back in the trees where you're not bothering people. And it's doing what it should be doing. I mean, if it's just a preserving area, nobody should be in there. It's preserved. We shouldn't have humans in there. And that's the whole thing, is to keep, you know, the humans away from the animals and the nice trees. I guess the Oregon white oak, it's endangered. You know, you start getting humans in there, there's something else can, you know. Well, I don't think, maybe an observation path, a little observation path coming off the, you know, into the oak area so you can see the 7 oaks that are in there. But I don't want the kids going in there going, I love Lucy. 2024, then the oak dies, and then the next thing you know, it defeats the purpose of all of it.
I thought we were pretty close to, you know.
I'm done talking.
In the green area.
I'm done talking.
I'd love to hear what you would do if the path was required for the blue areas.
What I would do there, I absolutely wouldn't do it. I wouldn't put the blue in, but I would build the turnaround or the observation area in an existing path, which is the purple. And then they can walk back down. I mean, you know, it needs to be
You're talking
cleaned up.
about
All
like
meant.
switchbacks or stairs. I mean, it's like you're talking.
Well, that's
about-
already in, that's phase
the
one's
way it
done.
is.
I mean, that slope it's approved.
But like getting down on the blue, like you're talking about, like a really weird situation to try to make that work.
Put switchbacks on there, that would work.
Well,
Through
through
the
the lot, you
lots?
can't do that. You can't block off their driveway.
Yeah.
That's not gonna happen. That can't happen.
Yeah,
Hard to
or
sell.
stairs down with like big walls on either side, or, I mean, it would end up being such a weird thing. But I never loved that, oh, we didn't get good survey, so I guess we just won't do it.
Well, because there were pathways in the neighborhood to begin with. That was the original.
Right, exactly. But now we're saying, oh, well, we can't do it because our original plan didn't take into account these slopes.
When you, I guess to ask Ann's question a little differently, when you propose option 2 that had the path along that area, what was the thought?
Based on our discussion, I was trying to show an alternative that still showed connectivity. Not that it's necessarily constructible, easily constructible, I guess. I mean, anything's constructible if you throw enough money at it, right? But it, you know, from a constructability standpoint, it's not something that you just go out there and lower a blade and you have a path. It's steep off that curve.
Just referencing within the site photos. It's the middle one on page 7 of the packet. Feel like I should be helping you process the decision making. So the concern right now is the grade of that path and whether it can be usable. The solutions to that concern could be to require the path be constructed of a certain grade. Not address it at all, remain silent about it, and let it be constructed as it gets constructed. Located in a different spot that maybe has less grade change. I think it's reflected in a little bit in Carolyn's frustration that she's not able as the city engineer to review a set of plans to be recommending, yes, this works for everything that we're engineering across a conference table. I don't know how to overcome the hurdle we're at, or how to help you guys make a decision on this issue, because it does seem like they're unresolved.
Well, I think there's certainly questions out there, Ben. This path was proposed in the preliminary plat. Maybe it was not developed sufficiently, as a proposal then. If it's not practical, I don't think we want to continue to require something that's not practical, not going to come to fruition.
Not as designed or as constructed.
Well, the
With the
slope,
lots, with the lots as they're configured currently, it's not practical. Like, let's be clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
yeah, but that was then, right? I mean, we don't get to go back. So the question is, are we, again, I won't re-argue my motion, but are we throwing good policy after bad? In the sense that maybe it wasn't a terribly practical requirement in the first place. That's my feeling. But again, I don't mind being in the minority, but I think I am.
No, I don't think you're in the minority. I'm just not quite sure we have a majority at this point.
Yeah.
Is there access from the Brady Lane cutoff to the purple?
Looks like there is there?
And is the Brady Lane, is it paved? I don't remember.
Brady Lane is paved.
Okay. And so there's access each side of the purple.
There is.
There is now. Yeah, at least according to Google Earth, I'm looking at it.
Yeah. Okay, then I will change my vote to agree that the blue does not need to happen because of the topography. But I would, my whole part of this is the original plan had pathways. And so I hate to give up all pathways. 100% understand the other pathways. But if this one's not buildable and not acceptable for most people to be able to access it, I understand that. And I will change to Mr. Hale's motion.
All right, now we're really deadlocked, Jeff, but unless you change your vote.
I was, Charlie, I was in agreement with you when you put your motion out there, so I guess maybe you misunderstood my comment.
Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't realize that. Okay, well, maybe we do have at least, if not a consensus, at least a majority of us.
Well, I think maybe you need to restate your motion.
Let's do housekeeping first, Charlie. So,
Sure.
Ann, can you rescind your second?
Please.
I do rescind my second.
Okay. So the motion on the table.
So,
that Davey put
so
on the
again,
table is now.
I will move. Yeah. So I'll move option one, which is the removal of not just the path requirements that the staff has already recommended removing, the red one in particular, but also the other path required on the east side, the blue, shown in blue. Obviously, the existing purple easement remains, and there's public access from Brady Lane into that tract from there, as we just discussed. But to make that continuous all the way up the slope and to reconnect with the street is what we're saying. No, we're going to clip that piece off too, and therefore I would move option one.
Can I offer an amendment to that, Charlie, before we?
Sure.
And that is that we support the staff's recommendation that there be an easement on the west side.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I didn't mean to remove that. Yeah, the easement on the west side should remain, but we're not building a path. At least not in the present time.
Wasn't that part of it?
Wasn't 69 and 70 pathway part of this?
It was not.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table that basically goes along with option one, but recommends the city have an easement on that west side to the open space area.
The one thing that's unaddressed in this is, it may fall within Public Works Director's review anyway, but where there are crosswalk drops that are constructed to
Regular sidewalk.
make them regular sidewalk.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I was assuming that remained as well, that those need to be restored to curb and sidewalk or curb as she had recommended, but there's no need for those to be drops now for a trail that's not going to exist along the north edge of the property.
Yeah, maybe it's just easier to say we take the staff's recommendation without the blue.
Better said, so moved.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion.
I like the blue, so I'm sorry.
All right. So this motion's on the floor. Any further discussion? Then all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All those opposed?
I guess that would make me a nay.
Yes, sir.
Feel like a horse.
All right. Thank you for your time, and thank you, everybody, for coming and sharing your thoughts and your concerns on this. That's the way this process is supposed to work, so we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for hearing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go
So
to
you can access your shit.
item 7, site modification.
They're breaking up sidewalks.
Yep.
So,
Walk across the big block crossing.
yes.
They just.
It goes around.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Congratulations. Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Dustin. You guys have those for me or what?
We still working on it. Thank you. It's on my to-do list.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
I have a question. Are we discussing the rest of all the way through S7 tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we will. We'll try to move forward. I guess I'll.
Do you want to amend the agenda and go to item number 7?
I think my colleague would appreciate that, yes.
Okay. I don't have
Thank you.
any problem with that. We can move, I hopefully, through that.
Item 7.
But Charlie, we're going to amend our agenda here and do the subcommittee reports.
Okay,
So I'll lead off with Ann
Parking.
on parking.
We have done our parking study for the month of August and actually met with Ben just kind of go over some of the questions he had on one of the routes I did. I was very impressed with our volunteers because it was I feel like I knew a lot about this and my first walk along was interesting to say the least. So everybody I was very impressed with our volunteers and I thank our volunteers. So we're just now in the process of Ben getting all the information input.
Yeah, so outcomes of this, we have several on-street parking improvement projects that have been identified, areas where we can add new spaces. We've got 2 data points in time to say how cars are parking downtown. And so we'll be able to bring those 2 things together to say, should this improvement project move forward quickly, or is it necessary at this point? There's another way to say that. Is it necessary to add spaces over here, or would anybody park there anyway? So that'll be put together, brought to the subcommittee, and then you all. What that information would then be used for is that parking in lieu fee. So if you don't want to do an 8-spot parking lot on your site, here are options to put on-street parking throughout the downtown, and this is what it would cost to do those. So please help us make that possible in the future. So it's all coming together. I hope that the advisory committee is ready to bring something and put it in front of you at your next meeting.
So our October meeting?
October
Oh,
meeting.
great, great. Questions? Let's go to the annexation committee, and Charlie, do you want to report out on our session?
Sure. Yeah, I'll sum up where I think we are, and then you, Jeff, and Ben, and Carolyn might otherwise. But I would say we are closing in. We've had several good meetings, including Councilmember Michael Johnson, and most recently Carolyn, our Public Works Director, joined Ben and Jeff and me in these discussions. And I would say we are closing in on what we think will be some clear and usable criteria for annexations. We're not there yet, and I think we're going to meet again next week, and we'll see if we aren't at that point ready to say we're ready to bring this to the Planning Commission for, discussion and something to move forward. But I guess I'd say we're making progress. We're getting closer to clarity, but we're not quite there yet, in my opinion.
Yeah, and again, I think just to sort of recap, we're not talking about laying out a proposal that the city will go out and say, we want to annex these areas. We're talking about a policy framework for when folks come to us and ask to be annexed, and what's the expectations, and are they in an area that really serves the city's interest in terms of an urban use.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I think it's great.
I'm glad you emphasized that, because I think there was some misunderstanding that to some extent we were, trying to craft a annexation strategy for the city to march across the landscape, and that's not our intention at all. It's to come up with some clear criteria for what we require of property owners when they want to annex.
Exactly. And having Carolyn come into this conversation has been great, because now we've had conversation about how do you logically extend, city services, whether it's sewer, water, roads, etc. And how do you do that? And we had, I think, a great map of the city that really showed areas that are currently within the city that aren't adequately receiving those sort of city services, sewer, water, and even roads. And so, if we're thinking about annexation, what are we thinking about, closing that gap in areas within the city as well? So I think we're developing, a pretty comprehensive picture, and hopefully sort of a logical framework to move this discussion ahead. Carolyn, anything you want to add?
No, I appreciate the conversation as well, and the work you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Means I don't have to do it.
Well, it was good to see what the city's plans were for sewer extensions of water and some of the road issues that you're trying to deal with, and that we oftentimes don't have a very consistent treatment of roads just because of historical practices that have been out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess another way I would emphasize is sort of restating the same point is when we're done with this, we should put our professional staff and our city council in a position where they can responsibly say yes or no and explain why.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Efficiently, because it takes so much time to evaluate proposals against our, gray areas or arbitrary kind of standards and policy.
Yeah. No,
well, and also to allow those folks that would be interested in annexation to really know what the city's expectations are in terms of what they're doing. So, when's our next meeting? It's 22nd, I think.
Yeah, that's right. 22nd.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts on subcommittee? We don't have any other subcommittee reports due today, I don't think. So, Ben, why don't we move back to our sort of regular sequence? Thanks, Carolyn.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me today.
Do we want to go to the Planning Commission bylaws, Ben?
We sure can. I think that these people here are not here for the bylaws. If you want us to accelerate.
Well, is this gonna?
It's your agenda.
Yeah, if this is something, if the bylaws thing is something that's pretty straightforward,
it's the bylaws state that you'll receive your agenda by noon on Thursday. The city's software for publishing agendas publishes them at midnight. Meaning that if I'm to get it to you by this, I need to have the agenda out on Wednesday to meet this. We try to get the full packet out on Wednesday, but the way our newspaper publication dates are is that we get comments due on Wednesdays, which just makes it would put me working after hours on Wednesdays to get a full packet out. And so the question I have for you is it acceptable to just get the agenda published as stated here and have the full packet then put together later on in the week? Or would you like to amend the bylaws to be noon on Friday to be able to click that link one time and get the information?
Or is it to amend the bylaws?
I did not include that section in here. I'm going from memory here. You need to have it presented in writing in front of you at one meeting, decision at the following meeting. And I think that it requires a supermajority, but I don't remember that.
Okay.
What are thoughts on this?
I'm fine with getting our weekend reading on Thursday night or Friday.
Yeah, I always look at it over the weekend, so it really doesn't matter to me.
I don't even check it till Monday.
So whatever's easier for
Is that an
you.
honest response? Yeah, I, quite frankly, I'd like to see just the agenda out as early as possible. Because that is, I think more useful oftentimes for the public in terms of planning their time. And then the full packet coming out later, because that's something that we can look at.
No, that's a good idea. That's not a burden, right? To just email the agenda.
No, not at all.
Earlier, that's a good
Basically
idea.
what we've been doing. Yeah.
Okay. And so that would be, what I'm hearing from that is no change to the bylaws.
Correct.
Right.
Change to practice. And you can do that. Okay.
Okay. Oh, the shoreline public access.
Back to the old stuff.
So as you requested at the last meeting, several changes to the shoreline public access plan. Those changes were made. The consultants did give us delivery of that today. I'm looking at packet pages. '40 to 41, where there's a request to be more sensitive to the various tribes that would have inhabited this area, instead of singling them out as all being relocated to the Yakima and Warm Springs Reservation. Being broader there, that change was, or an attempted change was made on agenda, I'm sorry, again, packet, page 70. There's a C concept insert on the overview map. The linear footage is corrected and clarified on page 71. I'm sorry. I think.
Page 70.
That's what the stuff in the back.
Yeah. Page 70, and then it's on the documentation on page 71.
In the gray square, the page number in the gray square.
Yeah.
Oh,
got
it.
Yep, you got it right there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I thought the changes were up in this other section.
The requested changes and then
Okay.
they followed through. Then on page 102 of the packet, there's the increase in cost and aerial scope of aquatic weed control, and changes to the appendix summarizing costs were prepared as well. There is additional public comment that was submitted by Bernard Bersari, and additional signatures. Well, is it additional petition entirely?
Yeah, Pat Alda signed the petition, and I signed the petition too. We're opposing the trail extension at Bob's Beach. And my memo, I sent it to you, explains the reason why. It would be duplicative because there's an existing stepping stone 12 at Bob's Beach that was built many, many years ago, and that people can currently use to get back to Cascade Avenue. And the picture of that is shown in my memo that I sent to you. Merely the stepping stone. I don't know if you looked at it, but let's see.
That was a picture you shared.
Yeah, you saw that picture, yeah. And I circled the stepping stones that you can clearly see that there is a 12 already that goes back to Cascade. And where that proposal that you still have would be a duplication of that stepping stone 12 because it would be a new trail, and the problem would be, and a lot of people are really concerned about it, the users of Bob's Beach, that it would cut across their access to the river, and it would encroach really on their ability to access the river and also to stage their equipment. We've got kayaks, we've got windsurfing, foiling, outriggers. There's just a lot of people, highly intensively used park for a long time, and a prime location for people coming to the gorge, visitors, and it would impair really their access, unique access really to the river, to have a trail crossing right in the middle of the park. And further, that trail, I don't know how to call it because there's already a trail, but it would be a duplicative trail. It would go back behind the port building to go back to Cascade. And that would take even more space, create some issues with the access to the building, safety issues, security. There's been thefts and a lot of issues down there on the waterfront. It would bring people, very often they close that access next to the port so that there's no, and there's also, you got a wetland right there next to the proposed trail. And there's also the access to the Conveyor River, which you're within the critical area, and the SMP 200 feet. So all the factors really clearly point to it's not a good idea. There's no value really to duplicate a trail. And when you're in that situation, why postpone and just say you're going to give it further consideration when the public has spoken, tell you we don't want it, it's not functional, it doesn't work, we don't want it, it would be an impairment of an existing park. So what we're asking here is to remove that from the proposal because it's not needed, it has no value.
Mary?
Oh, Mary, go ahead.
Okay. The only question I have is, my main interest in trails is that they also be accessible to ADA accessible. And if there's a trail that is better suited for ADA accessibility, I
understand.
To your, when you mentioned stones, I'm going, oh, okay, yeah, bad knees. Am I going to be walking up? I don't know where this is, but I would just urge that trails, any trails we're talking about, for the most part, unless it's totally impossible, be ADA accessible. And we are in a gentrification type community, or gentrified, and some of us just can't do the trails, and it would be nice to have easier trails in the community. So just as a general comment, not specific to this trail.
I hear you very well on that. There's a long trail along the riverside. It's paved, and it ends to the park. And the park, within the park, it's highly used. We access the river, and if somebody wants to use the asphalt currently, they can turn back and go back to the trail, stay on the asphalt, or they can go into the park. But once you're into the park, it's flagstones, it's stepping stones. And the reason for that is because it leaves more space for the users of the park. It's well maintained, there's grass, and it's a beautiful park. So we need that space. We don't want a trail cutting across the park.
No, I agree. I agree with that. Doug's Beach is, definitely access for the, the windsurfers and things like that. So, I mean, if you're cutting a trail through there, that might be a conflict.
Yeah, conflict is one of the things I mentioned. There will be conflict, people on skateboards going, windsurfers, people on bicycles, crossing windsurfers. There would be a lot of conflicts, many conflicts, some that we can't even imagine. There'll be people doing drugs, probably coming at night and doing things. And again, the port tries to keep its park safe. Okay, and that's one thing.
Right.
So, yeah.
No, and the other side of the Fort Cascade building is just a blackberry briar thing.
Yeah.
So
It's
I
called a
don't.
wetland.
It's what is it? Wetland?
It's a wetland, and you have setbacks and requirements with the wetland, and there's mitigation if you do anything. So there's all kinds of other factors, indirect factors that would be consequences of developing an asphalt. And I haven't seen the cost estimates, but initially it was portrayed as an asphalt.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's where we stumble on this whole thing. In terms of what's the nature of a trail, and what's the nature of a public access walkway? It doesn't need to be paved, it doesn't even need to be graveled, but it is a route that the public can walk and access.
And
can it be paved? Yeah, I guess it could be, but my thought has always been is we'd like to see some, you've got a paved trail down there, some recognition that, you could walk back up and you could go back down the street there.
And you can, through the stepping stones. Yeah.
So there's a public route to do that. And
currently there is.
And I don't think whatever we do here, if we're talking about a trail or a pathway of some kind, we want it to be compatible with all the users of that particular park.
Yeah, and that's what you have. Yeah, that's what you talked last meeting we had is number one priority. I remember it's in the minutes too, is to be compatible with the usage. Yeah. And it's long-term usage. I mean, we've been using it for 30 years. It was created 30 years ago, and it works perfectly. So if it's pristine, don't change it. Really, there's no need to do that.
Don't fix it.
Don't fix it. Yeah.
I'm not sure we're proposing a fix here. I think we're simply acknowledging that there's a circulation there, a public circulation that they can come down that paved trail and they can move it around.
Well, it's listed as a future consideration of public trail extension. So it doesn't mean we have to do it, but it's a consideration.
Well, and it's also, I think, how we envision the trail. Because I've talked about, I think one of our prior conversations was paved. I'm not sure it needs to be a paved trail. I'm not even sure.
But the question is, does it need
walking route?
There is already a walking trail, which is a stepping stone trail, so you can walk along the log cabins. You saw that on the picture. You can walk. So you have what you want, right? You want to be able to walk, and you do currently. So why need to consider further something that you have all the facts in front of you? You already know that you can do it. So why further consider something?
Well, I think it's simply recognizing that it is a public use area, and here's how you can, the public, the walking public can use it too. I'm not sure we're proposing anything, but I go back to Mary's comment too. Maybe something more walker friendly than stepping stones could be put in there that still wouldn't interfere with the use. So I guess I'm interested in seeing that as wide as a public use of that area as we can, and not be too exclusive, but at the same time, recognize that you've got those users out there and you want folks to get along and for it to be compatible.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of public using it. People come from everywhere to use Bob's Beach. It's a highly, it's a prime spot or a destination for the Columbia Gorge. So when you plan, you look at what's the best use of a location, okay? And then if you bring a conflicting item into that best use, then it's not good for planning and for designing things. So that's my opinion, and that's what everybody, the petition, everybody just.
So the plan for this, which is not what the petition was based off of. The plan for this is to engage windsurfer community to ensure suitability of connections between Columbia River and West Cascade Avenue and Russell Street. So everything you say when you talk about a pathway through here or a paved area through here is not the plan. The plan is to engage that community.
Well, they're very engaged. You have a petition already. You have the port who's telling you that they don't want it. You have me, you have everybody. So why further engage when you have the answer right now?
So is this on page 20?
Page 70 in the gray box.
Oh, okay. I'm on page 21. I thought it was.
No, look on the gray box, and it's page 70 and 71. I guess part of my issue is we are a planning commission. We're planning for the future.
Yes.
And so part of the shoreline access is planning for future and future consideration, and then said, you know, engaging, because I wouldn't want to walk my mother on the stepping stones. So if my son decided to go be a kiteboarder and she wanted to watch him, we have one area that we can go that she could walk. Why not make it to where, what if we have to park down on this side and it was shorter for her to walk? And I'm not my mother's gone, but she needed ADA wherever she walked. And so it's, to me, it's a future consideration. It's not, we're doing it now. I think, as Ben said, we want to engage, especially the users. I understand the whole history of.
We got the engagement. I mean, we've been coming into the commission like every meeting. People have spoken, so the engagement has happened. You listen to it or you don't, or you just leave it and kind of move on. But in terms of your mother, there is an asphalt trail, and she could have used that partially.
Yeah.
Well, all the way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a partial asphalt trail. I went and walked it to see exactly, because I know there's a lot of passion about this, to see. And I mean, I understand putting this as a future consideration. I do understand that. I do understand there's a history of Bob's Beach, and I understand you don't want that ruined. 100% understand that. But we are planning for the future as well. So.
Yeah, I think one of the things we tried to do was to pull out that discussion of it being paved or anything else.
Yeah.
It's just not there. It's simply saying, hey, we think there's public access considerations here that, you've got a paved trail, it just ends,
And I would, in your opinion, so the petition says that they oppose construction of an asphalt trail extension across Bob's Beach. In your opinion, does this plan accommodate that? The petition.
Well, if it was, as we discussed at the last meeting, if it was generic, if you said we'll consider something in the future, but it is not, because you have actually a map showing a trail outline across the park and then going behind the port building. So the line is clear. So it's more than just a consideration. It's actually, it looks like a plan and a project. So if you were to modify that, that would be acceptable to just say, we'll consider that, but don't outline really where the trail is going to be, because that's what people are concerned about. It's going to cut across their access to the river. If you want to have to take the existing stepping stone and make it more ADA friendly, that's a different story.
So I am definitely all about, compliance with ADA. However, I have hiked the entire Appalachian Trail. I've hiked the entire Pacific Crest Trail. So my idea of a trail probably differs from everybody. But at the same time, I think, the beach, and I've launched from there as well. I think that would be a conflict, if we put a trail or a pathway across the beach, it would just be it would
That's
be.
not proposed. That's
That's not what is
explicitly not proposed.
Yeah. So that's where I am on this.
So
Yeah, I guess,
We're actually discussing here, because what I'm hearing is you don't want a path across the beach, which I totally agree with. That would be like ruining the beach.
Right.
And that, so this path that comes here, which is also on page 21 here, can't it go like up and come back down, or?
Yeah, that's what I was just discussing. If you could, instead of going across, just like it's pictures right there in this latest draft.
So
if you were to move it along the cabins there and use the current stepping stones, if you want to improve it, you could, but then you would have basically not change the configuration and the access, and everybody would be happy because you met all the needs. But it's just that what's featured in the current draft is a line that goes behind the port building and across Bob's Beach, and we just don't like that. We think it's a bad idea. So
You think that a paved path across Bob's Beach is a bad idea?
yes, absolutely, not me. Everybody.
I know, that's what I'm clarifying, is that's what this petition is. Anything beyond that is not been stated.
So you think if we go above the log cabins?
Well, let's look at the picture here.
well, so let me, while you're going back to the picture, I mean, can I go, if I can, let me just go back to a little higher altitude here. I mean, this is a good plan, and it's got lots of aspirational enhancements and improvements in it. None of them is designed, right? It's a blob plan in that sense. I don't mean that as a criticism. It's a blob plan in that there are very general concepts drawn. Your concern is obvious and valid about, access to the river for, windsurfers and kiteboarders and other users, and that the potential for a paved path across there would be, problematical. I get that, and I'm glad you raised that concern. But it seems to me that we're a long way from designing anything specific here, and I guess I would rather note the concern than amend the plan at this point. You see what
Yeah, I
I'm saying?
agree with you, Charlie, absolutely. But the problem is that the plan has a map that shows
Yeah,
the actual.
no, I see that. I see that. I understand that it looks very specific.
Yes,
but-
exactly. That's my concern. If
Yeah.
it was just generic, it's just say we're going to reconsider that in the future, just words, we would be fine with that. But specifically, it shows where the line is going to go behind the port. We have problem with that across the access. So if that was removed and just left in general consideration, would be fine.
Yeah. So, I mean, this sounds a little playful, but if it was a dotted line instead of a solid line, but, I mean, conceptually, that's what you're talking about.
Consideration of public trail extension. Correct. So that's pretty, it's not
Yeah.
cut in stone, but it's a plan.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interpreted as a plan, although like the last meeting we said, I heard people say it's not a plan, it's not a project, but it is because it's specific. So Ben, if you were to change just the wording or just leave it in the text, we will consider that an extension without being specific. I think we'll be okay, but as long as the map shows the way it shows it, it's too specific.
I agree with Charlie, though, as long as we note the concern and don't change the plan, it's still a future consideration.
Yeah, I mean, I think realistically, if we ever got, I mean, I hope we build half these projects in my lifetime.
Right.
I mean, it's a great overall plan, and no doubt there will be details like this that matter. I'm not trying to be dismissive or sweep this under the carpet. I understand the concern, but I guess my instinct is, boy, we got to move forward with this, get it approved, and start trying to implement pieces of it, and with the understanding that there's going to be public involvement and full design for anything that actually gets built.
Yeah,
Right, Ben?
Yeah, and underscoring another use of this plan is not to lay out projects for construction, it's to facilitate those who want to do a project. And so we have a report that the port has no interest of doing anything down there. That's fine if they don't want to do anything now. But if we remove this, then we're removing their ability to easily do that should they want to do something. Maybe it's an extension just along the west side of their building to the, maybe it's only half of where this line is. All of that is still subject to.
I just think we're painfully in agreement on this. I don't think there's any real substantive disagreement. What if we put the caption on this, on the legend here that said, future consideration of improved public walking access? Yeah.
You got a yes out of that one, so.
Well, if you say that and remove the specific line, that shows where that's gonna be.
I could leave the line. I could simply say that line just refers to an area where we would consider improved public walking access. Future
Yeah, it's really,
consideration.
it's an arrow. I mean, it's not a design. It's saying from here to there, right?
But
All
most
these
everybody
arrows.
thinks that it is. It's not what you guys are saying, the words. It's people's perception is that if you put it in writing and you also put it in the legend, that it's a plan for the
Yeah, I
future.
know.
And what they want is assurance that this thing won't go across Bob's Beach.
The plan again is to engage the windsurfer community to ensure suitability of connections between these areas. That's the written text.
And who are the windsurfers?
Doesn't say that, doesn't have a definition.
Well, that's why, yeah, I mean, you got 32 windsurfers and
In opposition to a paved trail across Bob's Beach, which was not part of any plan.
I'm not one of them.
Yeah.
Your petition says don't put a paved trail. That's not part of this plan.
Well, it was part of the draft plan. It was, because it was all asphalt. We had
That's what we-
900 feet of asphalt.
That's why we changed it. We changed it, Bernard, based on that conversation.
Well, because
And-
I came and make some comments. That's why you changed it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have changed.
Absolutely, that's what public comment's supposed to do, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we responded to that, and I thought.
But Ben is telling me now that it was not an asphalt plan. Yes, it was. It was casted as an asphalt. It was.
My
portrayed-
reading of that was the 400 feet was where we specified it. My reading of that. I understand that you read it a different way, which is why we added clarity to that.
We're trying to bring some clarity to this, but I don't really think that we are that much in disagreement in terms of being willing to look at improving public walking access in that particular.
No, I concur. Yeah.
As long as it's a general way, we all agree that we need to improve the walking access. Total agreement with that. We just don't like the specific location shown on this map across Bob's Beach. That's all. And there's currently a walking through the stepping stones that can be improved, but it doesn't cross Bob's Beach. It doesn't go behind the port building. So.
And that may be just the best way to do it. I don't think we're jumping to that level of detail in this plan.
We are. The detail is fair. It shows where it is.
Yeah, I think
That's the problem we have, Jeff. There's too much detail. As Mary said, when people look at it, it looks like a plan, like a project. That's all.
And that's why I'm trying to find some way to show that, there's a general circulation pattern there, which I look at the arrows just showing me a general circulation pattern, not a specific trail or a path location, but it says, yeah, we like the idea of being able to come down and make that cycle and go back. So I think it's, you know, it's how do we have clarity that that's what we're all basically, I think, in agreement about.
I think we're in agreement. We're just in disagreement with the way it's portrayed and presented, that's all. So if we can resolve that, we would be all in agreement. I think we all agree. Mary, I think everybody on this table agrees, but why show the path of the trail now? Just leave it for the future where the people can decide. When you get inputs from windsurfers, more inputs, you already have them. You'll hear the same thing. We don't want you to cross our access.
Well, again, I mean, at the risk of being redundant, I think we've heard you. It's a valid concern that needs to be expressed. You've expressed it, and as have the people that signed the petition. When and if something actually gets designed, as Ben said, we need to engage the windsurfer community, anybody else that cares on a specific design. But the whole plan is full of these arrows, you know, with a crayon line between the two chevrons, right? I mean, it's not just on page 70, it's through the whole plan, right? So these are all indications of connection rather than an engineering design. So I guess I don't see how we could justify changing one at this point.
So I agree with Jeff. I think we're all in agreement on what needs to happen. Maybe we're not in agreement on the particulars of how it happens. I think Bernard and I are on the same page in that regard, but I think we can all agree that we need to get people through that area.
Mm-hmm.
So the particulars are just something we have to iron out later.
I think the arrows just show flow. I mean, it's on
Right.
every single page, it just shows the flow of what the proposal is. And it says consideration, doesn't mean it doesn't mean we're doing it tomorrow. So, I mean, I'm looking at the same thing on other property, and so I just have some clarification, but it says consideration.
Mhm.
And consideration is not a finality.
But
Yeah,
that's
the other
very fair.
that's the other reassurance I would offer is that, you know, I was down there a couple
It's just a
weekends ago
visual.
with my 4-year-old granddaughter, you know, and she thought it was really cool to walk through all the windsurfers, you know, so we'll work this out, right? I mean, you know, older people, my granddaughter, the windsurfers all want to use this public space. You know, we'll have to get to details of these in the design to try to balance all those uses. But what a fine problem to have. I mean, I'm sounding a little Pollyannish here, but I mean, I think this is a great plan overall. And I think these indications of future connection, including this one, make sense. They're not construction drawings.
No, I agree. And I think we should even, you know, take in consideration Mary's concerned about over ADA, you know?
Yeah.
And the plan has been changed because of concerns.
Yeah.
The wording has been changed, the plan's been changed.
Yeah, we improved quite a bit.
Correct.
It's just a last leg of improvement that could be made. It's up to you to make it or not, to clarify that it's just for future consideration without being specific, or just leave the confusion and the concern that Mary pointed out and mine, that putting a line there showing behind the port building and across is going to raise some concerns and make people unhappy, definitely.
Not when you read the legend and it says future
That people
consideration.
don't have that document you have in front of you. They're not gonna read the fine lines. They're gonna just see the map, and the map will show up somewhere at the library or something, and you'll see that, and people will react to it. So what's going on, and that will be just a bad feeling for a lot of people to see that. So just leave it general. No problem with that. We all agree ADA is important. Find a path, but don't be specific at this time in your plan.
Okay.
And she also has a concern.
Other comments.
We're not paving Bob's Beach.
Don't pave the paradise.
I can wait. I can come back. It's like, I get the gist of it. I just have, maybe it's just a Ben comment questions later. I think we could probably do that. So, yeah, there's
I
just,
mean, we're willing to.
no, well, I think,
She doesn't want to open that can of worms.
I don't, and, because I have, other concerns and, so there's some things to address other than, and it's not city, it's county, so we can talk. Ben and I can talk, Carolyn and I can talk, and we can hash it out.
All right, I just don't want you to feel like.
Nope, I'm good. I'm good.
Are there
So-
concerns about this plan?
There's just a couple questions that I just need to address, and there's some other things that came up that might clarify some things with the plan. So I just need to. It'll be an easy 15-minute conversation.
So are we prepared to say something about this?
Well, what you want from us, Ben, is to recommend approval of the revised draft, right, Ben? Isn't that what you're looking for here?
Is that a motion?
I'll make it.
Have a motion to recommend the approval of the plan with the modifications that were made.
With community concerns noted.
I like that. I will say
I like it too.
And that, second from Ann, any further discussion?
Negative.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed say nay. Okay.
All right, Johanna, question?
Where am I? Whoops, hang on. No, shoot. Yes, I'm just curious as to who was just speaking.
Therese Stacy.
Therese Stacy.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Do I
Got it.
need to spell
Thank
it?
you.
I will not give you my phone number. No.
Or date of birth.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank
I have you on the Forest Trail service thing.
Oh, okay.
you. Okay.
for before.
You still have one more chance.
Keep an eye on
No,
this, because,
it's
you
a,
know, like
a
I said, I
proposal,
think
so-
we're in agreement on what to do here. And, you know, hopefully people will say that this is a framework that we can work within and have some conversations and dialogue and think of what works. And
No,
what
we
doesn't.
agree with the plan at large, no? We just had a specific issue.
The details.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you raising it. It's a good plan, though. I mean, that's the thing to remember. This is really a good path for the community, you know, to have this kind of enhanced access to the shoreline. I've been enthusiastic about this plan all along, and I think it's a good piece of work.
Thank you. And thought of the month.
Thoughts of the month?
Merci, Bernard.
Oh, yeah, look up.
Let's see.
Friends from Vashon Islands in Puget Sound, they're having their own affordability concerns and addressing those as their community changes. And then
It was a
planning.
good read.
provided by Mr.
It
Burke.
was a very good read.
And then planning for EVs, it's another big topic, emerging trends that we have some regulations related to. They could be, we could always reevaluate all regulations. So we have a conditional use process in order to establish street side EV charging currently. The port obtained that when they did the charging station that they had down by Teal Park for a little while.
Yeah, even Cascade's got a charging station.
Yeah, so.
Are they profitable for businesses to put them in if you have a parking lot? I have no idea.
I don't know how it works.
Okay.
I don't know.
Put your credit card in.
Yeah, I know that. I just wondered if it was
I don't
profitable
know.
versus.
I have no idea.
Yeah, so encourage businesses.
I assume that there may be, because many of them are run by a third party vendor, I assume that there may be some sort of lease agreement or negotiation possibility for the businesses to do that, but I don't know that.
Well, I read that there was some company that was, putting it in all their parking lots. So it's coming.
Oh, yeah.
Don't we have two down at the port?
They've removed them. We granted them the right to do two, but they've removed them.
Oh, because Marie Perez was at a meeting the other day and she said, well, the only EV charging stations are at the resort in Skamania County. And we all thought, well, we saw the two down by the port.
Like the port.
So she was right.
The conversation I had was that the company stopped servicing them. And instead of replacing them, they just removed them.
Well, currently, the South African dude, who's crazy. Elon Musk, I mean, his company is the one who's putting them in all across America, so he's got the contract for that.
But you can modify an RV 30 amp outlet.
Yes.
And so at my Airbnb, they have the access to do that. So it can be, yeah. Mhm.
I charge mine on a regular 110.
Takes a long time. It takes a long time, but I come home at night and I plug it in and in the morning it's ready to go. With regard to that Vashon Island article, if you want a little more in-depth, there's an interesting lookout. It was published by a woman, she's a professor at WSU. It's called Divided Paradise.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that.
And she's looking at Washington state communities where we're seeing attention as more and more folks, outsiders, are moving into rural communities, and how oftentimes, while they may not be in conflict, they don't mix much. And the vision of what they want in the community isn't consistent. And it is presenting some real challenges. And it's an interesting read. I picked up a copy and reading it right now. So it's something I think we get glimpses of, I think, periodically when we're talking about, for example, increasing densities or multifamily housing in some of our neighborhoods.
What's it called?
It's called Divided Paradise. I can.
It's on my list, Jeff, thanks to your recommendation.
I had someone tell me the other day that there were 62 B&Bs, Airbnb, or not Airbnbs, but Airbnb types of places here in Stevenson. I don't know if that's true, but that's a division. That's a subject I think the Planning Commission should take up at some point. If you want affordable housing, it can't be Airbnbs.
That's probably true.
Thanks, Mary.
All right, you guys take care.
Thank you, Mary.
Is there anything else on this agenda?
Yes, I think we're
at number 9.
Staff and commission reports.
Staff and commission reports.
Septic sewer discussion continues at the city council level. So they have adopted a moratorium on the installation, expansion, or replacement of septic systems that are within 300 feet of an existing sewer line or within the urban reserve area, which is something from our comprehensive plan. So substantial portions of our town are unserved by public sewer. And there's not a requirement currently that they connect to public sewer. That is working against our future land use maps expectations about where it should be easier to develop or where you could add housing and address some of our affordability concerns. And so the city council will be considering some changes to require sewer connection in those areas. As they consider those, they've adopted this moratorium to give them the time to do that. They will hold a public hearing on the adoption of the moratorium at their meeting on the 21st. And so depending on the outcome of that, it could expire at that time or be modified in some way, but the conversation will continue. Public Works Department is also leading an effort to amend the Stevenson engineering standards. So this is something that came up in the conversation we had at the annexation meeting, and realizing that it wasn't keeping you all updated on this. So Stevenson engineering standards is, 100+ page document right now that has been largely difficult to use, I think, for city staff based on its organization, based on some lack of clarity. Carolyn talked about the grayness of the things that she's asked to act on. And then also hard for developers of the community to use too. So what we require in there often doesn't reflect what we envision when we talk about Stevenson, and adds costs for developers looking to come closer together about what the community needs to see in the future when development occurs. And so the engineering standards are a big part of that. Public involvement wise, and what will come to the planning commission before changes made there, will probably focus mostly on the street requirements, the street section, and changes to that. We have the option to send the size of a water pipe to you and material of a water pipe. We'll probably spare you from those details.
But the street information is pretty interesting stuff, actually, in terms of width and sidewalks.
Yeah, it matters.
Et cetera.
Yep. And that's all I have for you.
Okay. Anything else, folks? Davey?
Shout out to all the people of 9/11.
Absolutely.
Here, here. Good meeting.
Yeah.
I think we got a lot done tonight.
We did.
Yes, thank you all.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Let's do it.
Okay,
Second.
a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
See you guys on October 22nd or something.
Yeah, see you next week for annexation, you guys.